Even before a word can leave your lips, before you reach your hand out to shake, even before you have the chance to offer proof of your worth or your achievements, you've already been judged, categorized, and priced. And the most unsettling part is this. It happens in silence, right on the other person's face, like a cold gust slipping past, while no one takes responsibility. In someone's eyes, there is a wordless cruelty no one dares to admit. It isn't a moral failing. It's a cold biological instinct, an automatic reflex that fires in less than a fraction of a second. Do you realize that sometimes what hurts us most isn't what people say, but the way they look straight through us as if we don't exist? This is where Machiavellian theory speaks up. The other person's brain is running an ultimate survival calculation. We call this mechanism thin slicing, a primal reaction driven by the amygdala, the brain's cold alarm center. It doesn't care how kind you are, it asks only, are you a threat, or are you a resource I can exploit? And the moment that question sparks, it doesn't ask your heart for permission. It doesn't wait for your explanation. It doesn't wait for you to prove yourself. It simply decides. That unconscious ruthlessness is Carl Jung's shadow at work. It's the untamed part of the human being, the part that is always hunting for advantage, always reaching for a higher rung in the hierarchy. If the other person senses even the slightest tremor of uncertainty, a caved-in posture, a diverted gaze, the selfish engine flares to life instantly. And what's painful here? It isn't that they're bad. It's that they react like a self-defense system, as if life were an endless contest that never stops. The hidden motive is always this, a hunger for power and the fear of being hurt. When you hear that, ask yourself gently, in the moments you judge others too, are you seeking power, or are you afraid of being hurt? They don't just want to be above you. They want to make sure your existence will never become a threat, and if possible that you will become a source of validation, a source of respect for them. Indifference, or worse, contempt toward the weak, is the most poisonous and effective form of self-protection in society. Sometimes society doesn't need to shout to make you feel smaller. It only needs to turn its back. And here is the supreme law of the psychological underworld. If you look weak, you'll be treated like prey. It sounds harsh, but understand it as a metaphor for power imbalance. In conversation, in opportunity, in how people distribute attention, prey has no voice. Prey isn't listened to. Prey is pushed out of circles of influence. This doesn't mean you'll be physically attacked. It means your resources, your time, and your attention will be taken from you, in ways that are socially legal. Any kindness they offer afterward is temporary tolerance, not equality. Maybe you felt it before. You're polite, you try, you yield. And in return you get only a provisional spot, never truly regarded as an equal. Understand this rule clearly. Strength isn't showboating. It is the complete absence of weakness. Remove every sign of fear and insecurity, because that is the only language another person's shadow truly respects. And right now, if you feel yourself shrinking, remember, shrinking is instinct, but standing tall is a choice, and that choice can be learned. In the game of power and status, you're not evaluated by your inner essence, but by the instant chemical reaction you trigger in someone else's brain. That sounds cold, but it explains why sometimes you do everything right and still aren't seen. Not because you're worthless, but because you haven't activated the right signal in their eyes. Here is the coldest truth. If you carry the look of scarcity, you'll be treated like an invisible ghost. It isn't just disrespect. It's exclusion by instinct. No matter how sharp your mind is, no matter how pure your heart is, it won't matter. The moment your appearance signals lack of resources, lack of connection, lack of power, the world will quickly conspire to trap you inside that lack. You may feel angry, you may feel it's unfair, and you have every right to feel that. But if I'm telling this like an inner radio channel, what I want you to keep is this. Learn the rules not to become bitter, but to blame yourself less, to stop believing everything is your fault, because you're not good enough. Comillas punto. Why does it happen this way? Because when others see scarcity in you, they don't just see you, they see their own fear. They project their insecurity, their risk, their private vision of failure, onto you. To protect their fragile status, and to prove to themselves they are more successful than you, they push you aside. Ignoring you becomes a psychological defense mechanism, a declaration of personal power. You are not my concern. And maybe you've heard that not with your ears, but in the way they reply more slowly, glance more briefly, and reserve their warmth for someone else. In behavioral psychology, we call this the inverse halo effect. One negative cue about a status can eclipse every other positive quality. The brain operates with a risk shortcut. If you can't afford the look, are you worth their time, their trust, or their emotional investment? The answer they give is often no. And that doesn't speak to your true character, it speaks to how their brain saves energy. Machiavelli warned us 500 years ago. The vulgar crowd is always taken in by appearances. And in reality, the world is mostly made up of that crowd, people without the time or the will to dig into complexity. You might bristle at the word vulgar, but treat it as a description of a mechanism. Most people choose what's easy to read. The crowd's mind is profoundly lazy. They would rather believe what's readable on the surface than decode the complexity underneath. Appearance isn't just a shell, it is the only language of power they are willing to hear. You walk into a room, and the temperature seems to drop a few degrees. You feel eyes slide past you as if you're just furniture, a background detail not worth noticing. That isn't an illusion. It's the result of a psychological calculation completed in half a second. No potential social value. And when you've lived that moment, what you need isn't another accusation against yourself. You need a strategy to save yourself from the feeling of being erased. Power isn't only held, it must be performed. If you cannot perform it, you will be assumed not to have it. Stop complaining about bad luck. This is a lesson in strategy. In a world where the crowd is ruled by sight, you must learn how to manipulate their angle of view. In a world where the crowd is ruled by eyesight, is investing in how others perceive your value, and it is also investing in how you see yourself each morning. This is the brutal arithmetic of perception. It is as unbreakable as gravity, and until you tame it, the world will keep resisting every step you take. Most people cling to the naive belief that poverty is only financial. They are disastrously wrong. To human instinct, poverty isn't finance. It is assent. It is a corrosive signal of systemic vulnerability. Here, scent is also a metaphor. What others smell might be hesitation, fear of rejection, the feeling that you're asking permission just to exist. And carve this ancient truth into your bones. Nature, and the social structures built on it, holds weakness in contempt. You don't have to agree morally, but you must face it realistically, because facing cultures is the first step toward changing it. When you present yourself as devalued, I'm not just talking about torn clothes, I'm talking about shrinking in spirit and presence. You're not only begging for pity, you're triggering a primal predatory response in others. Unconsciously people ask, if you can't even defend your own territory, why should I respect your boundaries? Notice, this is not a call to become aggressive, but a reminder that boundaries must be broadcast through clear, consistent signals. This perceived weakness grants a silent permission slip. People deceive you because you've signaled that it won't cost them. They ignore you because low-status individuals provide no valuable social proof. And sometimes that social proof isn't about bragging, it's about standing steady as if you are accustomed to being respected. And yet the sharp operator understands this mechanism can be hacked. There is a precise method for crossing this brutal geometry. One way to signal power and inviolability before you even possess the spoils of the war. If the word spoils makes you uncomfortable, understand it as the outcomes you deserve. Opportunity, trust, recognition. This is the mastery of appearance over essence, a core doctrine of Machiavellian thinking. You must force perception to happen, using the supreme psychological law, status precedes substance. Learn how to project the aura of a king. Control demeanor, uncompromising standards, subtle resource signals, even when your wallet is currently empty. And here is the nuance. You don't do it to deceive others. You do it so you won't be deceived by your own fear. Machiavelli, the unforgiving master of power, called it the mask of the prince. The purpose of that mask is not to hide the truth of who you are, but to bend reality, to force the environment to see and treat you the way you want them to see you. It is manipulation at its peak, where reality must bow to appearance. If you're listening, and you feel conflicted, ask yourself, am I afraid of becoming fake, or am I afraid of taking responsibility for how I show up? Comillas punto. But to put on that invisible armor, you must remove, and more importantly, identify, the deadly mistake you keep repeating in this very moment. An invisible signal, almost imperceptible, that you release into the world. And sometimes that signal isn't in your clothes, it's in your breathing, in the way you enter an unfamiliar place, in the sorry you say before anyone asked for it. That signal declares, not in words but in hesitation, in a tightened posture, in an avoiding gaze, I have no value. You can step on me. My boundaries are an invitation to be crossed. And why am I telling you this? Because you don't deserve to be treated that way, but you also cannot wait for the natural world to become gentler. This is exactly when the shadow instinct in the people around you gets activated. When you broadcast weakness, when you broadcast low confidence, you accidentally hand others the power to exploit you. First, there is the compelled need for ego. They don't trample you out of personal malice, but because they need a psychological crutch. They use your weakness to elevate themselves. Second, there is the reinforcement loop. Your behavior submitting confirms their belief you're weak. And sadly, that loop can last for years, if you don't stop to see it as a mechanism, not as destiny. Carelessness in managing your personal image is a sin in the world of power and influence. It doesn't merely invite punishment. It ensures that your desires, your goals, and your boundaries will be dismissed. You have allowed reality to shape you freely, instead of forcing reality to submit to the solid, cold mask you painstakingly built. We must dissect why the world punishes the image of poverty and incompetence with such brutality. And when I say brutality, understand it as coldness, indifference, exclusion, not anything violent. This world doesn't run on fairness. It runs on efficiency and energy conservation. People fear weakness because it spreads, demands resources, and forces them to share burdens. That is pure Machiavellian defense. The human brain is the most efficient machine ever built, and it is also a master of laziness. It does not want to spend cognitive load digging through the mud of your outer messiness to find the pure gold of your inner character. It craves a shortcut, a heuristic. And here is where I want to invite you to engage for a moment, like a real conversation. Have you ever been misjudged, just because you had a moment where you didn't look okay? Have you ever walked into a place and felt yourself automatically speak more softly, force more awkward smiles, or try to seem easy just to be accepted? If so, share a little in the comments. Doesn't have to be long, just honest. You'll be surprised how many listeners recognize themselves in your story. Appearance is that shortcut, the instant tool for assessing your level of power, your potential contribution, and your level of danger or dependency. When you present yourself with sloppiness, a hunched posture, or an apologetic attitude in every situation, you're not only being judged, you're handing down a sentence against yourself. And if that feels too harsh, soften it into something truer. Every time you make yourself smaller, you teach people how to treat you. They despise poverty because it is a mirror reflecting their darkest fear. It reminds them of impotence and the possibility of failure, what each of us tries to bury inside the shadow. Poverty isn't just an economic condition. It is a contagion of bad luck. Human beings, naturally superstitious creatures haunted by status anxiety, instinctively keep a safe distance from that negative energy. And sometimes what they are avoiding isn't you, but the fear inside them, when they see the possibility that I could fall too. comillas punto. Machiavelli observed that men judge more with their eyes than with their hands. Everyone sees what you appear to be, but only a few know what you truly are. The problem is, your everyday life isn't decided by a few, but by countless passing glances. You walk into a room, and the temperature seems to drop a few degrees. You feel eyes slide past you as if you're just furniture, a background detail not worth noticing. That isn't an illusion. It's the result of a psychological calculation completed in half a second. No potential social value. You have triggered, instantly, a cold judging mechanism. You have been labeled, loser, broken, someone to avoid. This is the reverse halo effect, and if this part sounds like what you heard earlier, yes. Life does that too. It repeats the same test again and again, in different rooms, until you learn how to walk in without losing yourself. Now, imagine that miserable man is you. And if you cannot control your packaging, from posture to clothing, you have surrendered the power to determine your fate to the crowd's ruthless, shallow, instinctive judgment. Before sleep, we whisper fake spells. I'm a genuine person. I don't care what people think. I dress for my own comfort. This is not the language of freedom. It is the cry of a victim mindset. It is a desperate attempt to reduce cognitive dissonance. The pain of knowing you must do more, but choosing ease instead. And if you've ever said those lines, don't be ashamed. Just recognize. It is self-soothing, not ultimate truth. Comfort, psychologically, is power's sworn enemy, because it lulls the shadow inside you, the part that craves status, influence, and control. When you say you dress for comfort, you are rationalizing a lack of discipline and a fear of facing social judgment. In behavioral psychology, we call this sending negative status cues. Other people's lizard brain is programmed to classify you instantly. Are you a resource or a burden? A hunter or prey? And again, take those images as metaphors of status, not as encouragement of anything harmful. When you choose laziness over preparation, everything turns against you. Your confidence is questioned. Your words lose weight. Because if you don't have the discipline to respect yourself in how you present, why should anyone else respect you? This is Machiavelli's world. The battlefield is reality. You walked into war naked. The enemy never grants mercy. And the enemy sometimes isn't a specific person at all, but an unfeeling social reflex system. Forget the rosy halo effect. We must face its dark twin, the horn effect. If one single trait is judged negative, a torn shoe, an awkward posture, a clumsy moment, the other person's brain immediately triggers confirmation bias. They assume everything else in you is rotting too. They don't just think you're lazy, they conclude you're incompetent. They decide you're unreliable. Why this ruthless leap in logic? Because discipline is the only thing that can be seen. Behavioral psychology teaches us. The brain is always hunting signals of control. If you can't manage and maintain your own physical shell, the shirt on your back, the way you stand on your feet, why should anyone believe you can manage a complex project? Accepting a sloppy image sends a powerful message. I am predictable, and I am easy to manipulate by my own chaos. And when others attach negative labels to you based on appearance, they raise their own relative status without effort. Neglecting your image isn't merely careless, it is slander against your own soul. You are declaring to the world that you are useless, inferior, unworthy of respect, even if that isn't true. And the world, cold, practical, always ready to believe the worst, will accept that unconscious confession. There is a cruel paradox. Money, power, opportunity, they do not flow to where they are most needed. They flow to where they feel least desperately wanted. This is the law of resource attraction, a Machiavellian rule few people dare to admit. Imagine a man walking into a bank. He needs money so badly that the scarcity has become a scent he cannot hide. The bank does not see a person in trouble, they see a contagious risk. The desperation he radiates is not proof of hard work. It is a signal of helplessness. The lender's brain instantly triggers loss aversion. Now the second man walks in wearing a perfectly tailored suit. He speaks slowly, with the indifference of someone who has too many options. The vault door opens. Terms become generous. Why? Because he broadcasts abundance. He triggers the halo effect. As social animals, we obey the law of association. We fear failure and crave success. If you show that you need help, the world sees you as a burden. But if you show that you can offer help, even if only as a hypothetical capacity, the world throws resources at your feet. The ultimate lesson is this: power is not in what you have, but in what you signal you do not need. Need is an anchor. Indifference is a magnet. To look poor is to broadcast cost. To look poorest and affluent is to broadcast investment. When you enter a negotiation looking depleted and worn down, you are not asking for a deal, you are demanding charity. And charity is a hard, cold crust of bread, given with contempt. Your presence is an insurance policy for decision makers. By looking polished and powerful, you lower the personal risk for people to bet on you. You reduce their cognitive load. If you refuse to play this perception game, you are not authentic or original. You are dangerously arrogant. That refusal is extreme naivete. The world owes you nothing. Your responsibility is to excavate your core value, and then coat it in a layer of gold. Gold bright enough that even the most blind, the ones who only see through fear and ambition, can't miss it. The first, most vital instruction from Florentine master Niccolò Machiavelli is: become a great master of simulation and dissimulation. Absolute power demands that you fully conceal your true nature when it is disadvantageous, and display only the mask the situation requires. Because transparency is not a virtue. It is fatal carelessness. We must admit this primal truth. People do not respect your honesty, they use it. When you expose weakness, you don't create empathy, you trigger the predatory response. And this is also where you can begin to change. Not by becoming cold, but by choosing the right place to be soft, the right moment to be hard. If your inner world is hungry for recognition, hungry for an opportunity, you must look as though you are full, even overflowing with a cold composure. Excessive longing, neediness, is the cheapest currency in the world. In contrast, calm self-sufficiency creates the scarcity effect, forcing others to pay a higher price for your attention. If your nerves are stretched tight with anxiety, you must project a boredom so calm it almost feels insulting. Anxiety signals inner loss of control. Boredom, detachment, becomes the supreme mask of power. You must hide every sign of struggle, every trace of craving, revealing no gap in your defensive wall. And here, I want you to understand trace as a metaphor for emotional residue, for the obviousness of need, not anything violent. Because the moment they smell the real scent of your need, sharks, always hiding under the surface of civilization, begin to tighten the circle, and they will swallow you without regret. The metaphor is fierce, but the essence is simple. People take advantage of those who show need too plainly, especially when you don't have boundaries. Dominance hierarchies are a biological imperative. When a wolf notices a sheep limping, it isn't a signal asking for help. It's a low-risk signal. Modern human society is only a cleaned-up, complicated version of that predation landscape. We use more ruthless weapons, ones that produce social death. And when I say social death, understand it as exclusion, loss of opportunity, being made invisible, not physical harm. When you display poverty, Not only money poverty, but poverty of spirit and confidence. You limp socially. That limp sends 3 core messages that activate contempt and attack instincts in the strong. Lack of allies. You have no powerful people to protect you. Lack of self-defense resources. You don't have the financial capacity to strike back. No retaliation. Most importantly, you signal that if someone harms you, no one strong or invested will avenge you. That frees predators from fear of retaliation, the only fear that truly restrains human aggression. You become a low-risk target for exploitation. And if you feel tired hearing this, remember, recognizing signals is not to live in suspicion, but to learn to send different signals. Look at a salesman's calculation. When a merchant cheats a man wearing a custom suit, he fears that man has good lawyers. Social deterrence is activated. The suit is not just fabric, it signals the capacity to bear the costs of psychological war. But if that merchant cheats a man dressed in rags, he fears nothing. I have witnessed men of extraordinary intelligence destroyed simply because they didn't understand this brutal rule. They dressed like servants and so they were treated like servants. Appearance isn't vanity. It is armor. It is a psychological force field that makes predators hesitate. That hesitation is all you need. In that split second of doubt, the second when they must wonder, who is this man? What will it cost me if I offend him? You have won. And sometimes, the first victory is simply this. You are no longer seen as easy to disrespect. Comillas punto. You want to believe the world should run on compassion and integrity. This isn't morality. This is protective denial. You're trying to bargain with cause and effect. Moral outrage will not slow the fall. Machiavelli wrote about the world as it is. And in the world as it is, we must accept a cold truth. The core human driver is not love or cooperation, but fear and the hunger for power. When you ignore that hidden driver, you commit the deadly error of strategic naivete. In the world as it is, the man who neglects his psychological armor will die. Vulnerability is a weakness they are socially permitted to exploit. And if that wording weighs on you, translate it into a sober reminder. If you don't protect yourself, you're letting life decide for you. Who poured poison in your ear? That presentation is trivial. That vanity is a sin? That wearing modest, sloppy clothes is proof of superior character? That is the sour grapes fallacy disguised as virtue. What matters is what's inside. It's an empty line created to soothe people who have made themselves invisible. Your inner life, intelligence, morality, creativity, is the product. Your appearance, how you dress, how you carry your body, your nonverbal language, is the marketing. If you package the best product in a rotting trash bin, no one will dig for it. This isn't the world's shallowness. It's the world's primal operating system. If you truly value your mind, your soul, your vision, why place it in a temple that looks like ruins? Dressing badly, neglecting self-care, carrying your body with the hunched posture of defeat. This is self-sabotage, a profound self-humiliation. When you downgrade your physical image, you quietly send the universe a clear signal. I am discounted merchandise. My boundaries are negotiable. And the world is a brutally precise mirror. It reflects exactly the level of respect you give yourself. When you sharpen your appearance, you sharpen your mind. The discipline of the outer shell seeps into the inner world. This is embodied cognition. Your body instructs your mind. When your appearance is carefully tended, you send a powerful wordless signal, I am in control. You trigger enclothed cognition. That jacket isn't just fabric, it's a psychological uniform. You don't wait to feel confident before you look put together. That is passive thinking. We look put together in order to become confident. The weak wait for feelings. The powerful build feelings through calculated action. A controlled appearance is an absolute instrument of influence. It establishes psychological distance from the mediocre. Remember this, when you walk into a room, your appearance has already spoken for you before you open your mouth. It establishes order. It signals stability. And most importantly, it is a subtle form of threat. A wordless reminder. I have boundaries. Comillas punto. Each morning, before you step beyond your doorway, you are putting on a psychological skin, choosing a role in the great theater of your life. Who are you positioning yourself as in this film, the victim or the architect of your fate? Too many people choose the tragic costume of the victim, then wonder why their life's script is packed with tragedy. The poverty gaze isn't about money, it's about poverty of spirit, a severe lack of inner power. It is the constant apologetic look, the expression of low self-worth, what can be called the repressed shadow. It is the habit of breaking eye contact first, an ancient ritual of surrender. It is the habit of shrinking your body as you cross a threshold, as if pleading not to be noticed. These are the behaviors of a tenant farmer, a spiritual slave. In contrast, the royal gaze, the steady look that continuously evaluates, observes, and controls the environment, signals a king in hiding. The difference is this. A beggar begs for approval. A king decides who is allowed into his territory. Machiavelli taught us a cold truth. The lion doesn't need to roar to be revered. It only needs to be present. When you carry the look of poverty, not material poverty but poverty of self-mastery, you become excessively busy, overly eager. You explain too much, smile too much, try too hard to please. This isn't politeness. This is fawning, the survival response of a subordinate searching for tolerance from a dominant figure. Abundance is calm, power is stillness. When you are comfortable with silence, that is a signal of inner wealth. Your silence forces others to fill the space, forces them to move first. When you are comfortable occupying space, not shrinking, that is wealth of power. Everything turns against a scarcity mindset, because their body language screams, I need your approval to exist. I'm beneath you, please don't hurt me. And the world answers ruthlessly, you're right, disappear. If that line hurts, fine. As long as you use it to wake up, not to collapse. You must train the body before you can persuade the mind. Start by moving at the pace of someone who isn't paid by the hour. Powerful people own time. They are not rushed. And most importantly, you must hold someone's gaze until they feel the weight of your evaluation, not the other way around. Let's dig into the biggest signal of poverty. Not poverty of money, but poverty of power and spirit. That signal is noise. The powerless are always loud. They ramble. They reveal half-formed plans. They spill personal insecurities. They call it openness or authenticity. But through the lens of power, they are handing you all the ammunition needed to destroy them. And if the word ammunition feels too sharp, keep the psychological meaning. The more you talk, the more weakness you expose, the easier you are to be used. Power doesn't need to shout. It needs silence. The tiger never announces itself until the moment it strikes. When you talk too much, you commit an unforgivable psychological sin. You signal that your words have no value. You inflate supply and collapse demand. To never look poor, you must master the art of keeping your mouth closed. When you are silent, you become a perfect blank canvas. When you create an information vacuum, the other person's mind panics. They begin to project onto you. In their insecurity, they try to impress you. This is the Machiavellian reversal. By saying nothing, you force them to perform, to prove their value to you. Listen. You make excuses. I can't afford a custom suit. Looking poor, rarely has anything to do with the brand you wear. It has to do with maintaining your reality. A man in a cheap shirt, if it's crisp, clean, white, and perfectly tucked, looks wealthier than someone in a male designer hoodie that's wrinkled and stained. A clean shirt is visual proof of a core virtue, discipline. When you look messy, you broadcast a lethal psychological signal: chaos. You're proving you can't control the entropy of your own life. A person who can't master themselves is easy to manipulate. The truth the upper class understands: rich people look clean. That kind of clean conveys a strong internal locus of control, denying the influence of outside chaos. In contrast, the poor look dusty. Neatness isn't vanity. It is a declaration of inner order. Power lives in details, and decline does too. A worn heel, a frayed collar, a cracked phone screen protector. These are data points the brain collects to classify you instantly. A shattered phone screen isn't just a technical issue. It's a screaming alarm of resource scarcity. It declares, I broke this, and I lack both the resources and the will to restore it. So I accept living with what's broken. That acceptance is psychological surrender. Machiavelli taught that a prince must appear merciful, faithful, humane, upright, and devout. Human nature can't be controlled, but the crowd's perception can. You must become a strict manager of the artifacts in your life. If you drive a rusted car, a metal confession of financial stagnation, park it around the corner. Walk the final stretch. Walking lets you establish physical presence before the environment gets the chance to speak for you. Better to be the confident owner of a small domain, a coffee shop, than the trembling servant of a large domain, an expensive banquet table. Because perfect control in the small predicts your ability to master the larger. Poverty from the angle of image and perception has one last factor, and the cruelest one: the people around you. If you're surrounded by those who look defeated, the public mind instantly frames you in the same picture. You are not just you. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. When you appear beside successful people, the halo effect transfers to you immediately. You borrow their credibility. It's a silent transaction. But when you keep friends who carry negative energy, you're not only dragged backward emotionally, you're also locked inside the social proof bias. The world will see your lack of discernment. You don't have to abandon old friends completely, but you must learn how to separate ruthlessly, a skill called compartmentalization. You must have the courage to remove what we can call visual drag, the psychological and image weight that slows your rise. Because the world runs on the oldest principle: birds of a feather flock together. When you do this, when you meticulously remove each signal of poverty from your life, something strange, almost purely mechanical happens: you stop being poor. When you wear the image of power and abundant resources, you trigger the halo effect. The appearance of wealth is automatically translated into competence, trustworthiness, intelligence. People treat you with respect. And when you are respected, you are given opportunities. That mask is not a lie. It is a strategic propaganda. When you look in the mirror, your brain begins to experience cognitive dissonance. A person who looks powerful cannot also be a small, helpless victim. To resolve the conflict, your mind is forced to believe its own propaganda. The mask summons the real face. This is the ultimate secret of manipulating reality. The fabricated outer edge restructures the truthful inner core. You no longer see a victim waiting to be rescued. You see a contender, someone ready to fight, a potential owner of their life. Because you see an owner, you act like an owner. And here is where I want to bring the story back to your real present life. Close, tangible. You don't need to become someone else. You only need to become the version of you that no longer asks permission to be respected. You can start with the smallest thing tomorrow morning. Stand a little straighter, slow down a little, be a little neater, stay silent at the right moment a little more. Those small changes, repeated, will create a new you that is still you. Machiavelli was ruthlessly right. Etch this into your mind. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Only a few experience what you truly are. So give them a vision of greatness. Dazzle them with the image of the person you are becoming. Don't wait for the goal to arrive before you polish the crown.
The choice is yours.
But judgment is coming. It comes every day, every second, from every pair of eyes turned toward you. Will they see a worthless victim, or an owner who is waiting for them to bow? And if you don't like those two extremes, create a third option for yourself. A person with self-respect, calm, with boundaries, someone who knows how to show up in the world without losing kindness. For your community, for your family, for the people you love, and for you, a version of you who can stand in the middle of life without trembling anymore when the cold wind of other people's eyes blows past.